The writer of Psalms was an Israelite. He was a Hebrew. And the Hebrews had two things that they were thankful for. Two big things. They were thankful that God created them, and they were thankful that God chose them. This is right smack dab in the middle of them figuring all this out, but they knew out of every nation in the entire world, God chose them to be His people. So they're thankful for that. And then at the same time, I can be thankful that even though I'm not an Israelite, God made a way so that He could choose me. So we have to be thankful just for the most basic fact that we're here. But I think the question is a little bit bigger than that. What is this Thanksgiving, and what does it look like to live it? And so, I've kind of been in a sci-fi mood lately, gearing up for the new Star Wars movie, and so it made me think, what if an alien race were to come to Earth to ask the question of what is Thanksgiving, and they decided that this nation called America celebrates a day called Thanksgiving Day, and so they would observe that day to figure out what Thanksgiving is. And there are a lot of families, I understand, that celebrate Thanksgiving by giving thanks, but I think for the most part, they might come to the conclusion that Thanksgiving is maybe spending time with people that you only see that one day a year. You might not necessarily even enjoy being around them. It's about waking up and watching a parade that happens in a different town. It's about overeating tons of food, mainly animal carcasses. It's about passing out in the afternoon and waking up to football. Is that what Thanksgiving is about? And I know that's kind of comical and a little bit of a stretch, but I don't think it's much. That's how honestly, that's how I'm going to celebrate the day. I'm going to eat a bunch of food and watch football. Luckily, I'll be around people that I enjoy spending time with. If we haven't met, I'm a statistics teacher at Springdale High School. It's my favorite class to teach. I teach other classes too, they don't count. Teach AP statistics. I have a great group of kids. It's a fun class. Really good discussion comes out of it. Just recently we talked about experiments and setting up experiments, and while doing research for the sermon, I found a really cool study that happened a few years ago. Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough, they did this study and released it in 2003, and it was titled Counting Blessings versus Burdens, an Experimental Investigation of Gratitude and Subjective Well-Being in Daily Life. So I made copies for everyone, and I'm just kidding. We're going to highlight it over the next few minutes to kind of look at what happens. I think it's interesting because you don't hear these kind of questions asked very often in the science community. This is not a normal study to do. I think it was interesting that they included the quote right there by Charles Dickens, "Reflect on your present blessings, on which every man has many, but not on your past misfortunes, of which all men have some." That's how they started their paper off. That's pretty cool. And so in this study, they wanted to see what happens whenever you're thankful for things. So they had a bunch of volunteers, and they broke them up into 3 groups. The first group, they spent some time every day making a list of the things they were grateful for. And the researchers asked them to make a list of 5. And not to spend a lot of time on it, just some things you were thankful for, up to 5. And then the second group of volunteers, they asked them to just talk about everything during the day that annoyed them, that made them upset, that they were just sick of. Things that they were maybe ungrateful for, or the opposite of gratitude. And then there was a group who just didn't do anything. So we could compare. This is known as a control in the science community, so we can make some comparisons in the end. And this study just discovered some awesome things that we've already known because we have the Bible, but they have physical scientific evidence for some really cool things about gratitude. And they made 3 main points in the study, and that's kind of what we're going to focus on today. And the first point was that if you live a life of thanksgiving, a life of thanks is joyful. And that's the first blank in the program, if you want to fill that out. A life of thanks is joyful. And if you think about it, our definition of gratitude was realizing the things in life, the good things in life that we haven't earned. That can give you a little bit of optimism. The actual line they have in the study says, in study week 1, we found that a weekly benefit listing, that was the group who listed at least 5 things that they were thankful for, was associated with more positive and optimistic, that's a big word, optimistic appraisals of one's life. More time spent exercising and fewer reported physical symptoms. In study 2, self-guided daily gratitude exercises were associated with higher levels of positive effect. The people who listed things that they were grateful for were just happier. After they listed these things that they were thankful for, or the group that listed the things that just annoyed them, they answered some questions about their life, how happy they were with things, how happy they were with their relationships, questions like that. And there was a noticeable difference in the group that was thankful. They were just happier about life. And you wonder why that is. Just making a list. These people's lives weren't that much different. The only difference was one group was focusing on the good things and the other group was focusing on the bad things. And the reason is when you focus on the good things, you start seeing how good things really are. We look back at Psalms 100. We can see that the writer's kind of making a point about our gratitude. It says, shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful song. Know that the Lord is God. It is he who made us and we are his. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. For a second, it sounds like this joy and gladness is like a command for them to do. But when you tie it in with the rest of the verse, just being thankful that we're made, joy is a product of that. And so again, like I am, maybe you're a pessimist and you just say, I'm not really in a thankful mood today. My day kind of went bad. And so it's hypocritical for me to sit down and make a list of the things I'm thankful for. Why would I force myself to come up with this list that I don't even think exists? And to answer that, I think John Piper makes a good statement. He says, do not say, but it is hypocritical to thank God with my tongue when I don't feel thankful in my heart. There is such a thing as hypocritical thanksgiving. Its aim is to conceal ingratitude and get the praise of men. That is not your aim. Your aim is loosing your tongue with words of gratitude, is that God would be merciful and fill your words with the emotion of true gratitude. Let me read that again. Your aim in loosing your tongue with words of gratitude is that God would be merciful and fill your words with the emotion of true gratitude. You are not seeking the praise of men. You are seeing the mercy of God. You are not hiding the hardness of ingratitude, but hoping for the inbreaking of the Spirit. Thanksgiving with the mouth stirs up thankfulness in the heart. What John Piper is saying and what this study found is Thanksgiving creates this weird feedback loop. You might have heard feedback before. It's an audio term. We kind of keep it to a minimum on Sunday mornings, but it's what happens when the speaker and the microphone interact with each other. The microphone picks up the sound of the speaker and amplifies it, shoots it back through the speaker, and then picks up that sound again and amplifies it, and you hear that, whoa. You guys are familiar with that? That's known as feedback. What this study finds and what John Piper is talking about is when we are thankful for things, it produces happiness in our life. And when we're happy, we look on the positive side. And when we look on the positive side, it makes us more grateful. which makes us more happy, which makes us more positive, which makes us more thankful. And you get into this like crazy cycle of just joy and thanksgiving. And I'm not making it up, it's science. And it's not anything special about this list of 5 things that these people are coming up with. It's just intentionally being thankful for a small part of your day. Just intentional. The second observation that they found, I thought was one of the coolest, but it's the life of Thanksgiving is obvious. The only change that these people made to their life was making this list. One part of the day they sat down and made this list. How long does it take you to list 5 things? Just a couple of minutes. So the only difference in their day is just a couple minutes of writing 5 things they're thankful for down. Or the other group just taking a few minutes every day and writing out the things that annoyed them. And the study found that these data indicate that the benefits of the gratitude listening, writing down those things that you're thankful for, in comparison with the control group, transcend self-perception and are evident at least to significant others. They also had the people involved in these subjects' lives, like their spouses, kids, family members, they filled out a questionnaire too, just about what they thought of this person who's making these lists of things that they were thankful for. The people in their life noticed that. These people aren't like changing the way they live, they're just sitting down to make a list every day, intentionally being thankful for just a few minutes. And it was evident to the people around them. They seemed happier, they seemed more involved. It was the effects of just making this simple list were insane. The people in that group got more sleep at night, they woke up more rested, they complained with fewer problems with their back, and just like general ailments in their body. It was noticeable to the people around them. And why is it noticeable? Because a life of thanks stands in stark contrast to a life of complaints. Nobody wants to be around that person who's negative all the time, because you feed off that. But it's the same way with someone who's being thankful and positive. It's contagious. You can't help but feel it. It's funny, raising a child and trying to get her to do the right things and trying to teach her about thankfulness is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be originally. And it might be one of the reasons that I struggle with thankfulness whenever I've gotten older, but when she was young, we would, every time we would hand her something, especially if she was asking for it, we would say thank you to get her to say thank you back. And she picked up on it at a really young age. It was super cute. She would reach for something, we'd pick it up and give it to her. She would say thank you in her little baby talk, and it was just precious. And we were raising up a little child of God, and we were patting ourselves on the back as parents, doing our job right. Now she's old enough to walk around and grab the things that she wants, and she'll walk over to someone. A lot of times it's her little cousin. She'll snatch something out of her hand and say, thank you. She missed the point a little bit. But I think oftentimes that's what we get caught up in. You know, we say thank you, and our thank you means I have that. And so we feel like the things that we have in our life, the things that come easy, are some way ours, and thank you is just what you do. There's a popular meme on the internet known as first world problems, and it's kind of making fun of America and other first world nations for the things that we complain about. It's really, really funny. It's a picture of a girl crying, and they're all over the internet, lots of different ones. I picked out just a few that I thought were funny. The first one I saw said, my diamond earrings keep scratching my iPhone. And she's crying about it. You might deal with this atrocity this afternoon whenever you get home for the football games. This one is, I forgot I was watching a recording and I sat through the commercials. And then my absolute favorite, the only thing I have to drink is clean, free water. But the worst part about it is it sounds ridiculous, but it's things we say. I tell you, yesterday I got livid because, I say livid, very, very upset, because we had lost the remote to the television, and my wife and I were watching a movie, and at one point they were talking and it was too quiet, and then a minute later there was a lot of action and it was too loud, and then there was another dialogue and it was too quiet, and I ended up having to get up 4 or 5 times, walk across my living room and change the volume. And I was just like, if you say one more time to change the volume, I'm leaving. I was gonna miss the end of the movie, for real, just because of the inconvenience. It's so much easier to be negative, but it's not what we were made to be. I also want to make the point that this listing of thanks and it's showing in our lives is not to receive recognition. It's not to be a better than you kind of a thing. Jesus warned against that in Matthew. He said, be careful not to do your acts of righteousness before men to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven. I don't want us to be insincerely thankful or to try to be positive so that people around us recognize that and give us some kind of pat on the back or way to go. What I'm trying to say is this study found that just listing, if you were just grateful or thankful for a moment in your day, the product was a more positive life. That was the product, not the intention. The intention was just to make this list. 5 things, boom, 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 boom. But the product was being joyful and positive and it being obvious to the people around them. And then the last thing I want to hit is a life of thanksgiving is philanthropic. It's a pretty big word. It just means sacrificial, giving. The study said people led to focus on their blessings were also more likely to report having helped someone with a personal problem or offered an emotional support to another, suggesting pro-social motivation as a consequence of the gratitude induction, which is making that list. This finding lends support to the hypothesis that gratitude serves as a moral motivator. Whenever I put my life into perspective, how good I really, really have it, it makes it easier for me to see the struggle in my fellow man. And a lot of times I don't live that way. Because whenever I focus on my problems, then my life becomes the task of alleviating those problems. And I feel bad about it afterwards for being so selfish. Especially when you hear stories of sacrifice, people going overseas to fight for our freedom, giving their life in the inner city to help out people less fortunate than themselves. One of the craziest lives of Thanksgiving and giving that I've ever read about was this guy named Patrick. He lived in Great Britain. When he was a kid, he was kidnapped and sold into slavery in Scotland. And at the time, this is back a few years, Scotland was still just clans. They hadn't become civilized or colonized by the British. And so being a slave was rough. Patrick was beaten daily, forced to do hard labor. But Patrick decided to be thankful and prayerful that he was alive that day. And so he would pray all day long to get him through the day, and then he would lay his head down and he would pray to go to sleep at night. And he just lived a life of thankful prayer. Finally, he ended up getting away. He escaped, got on a boat back to Great Britain, and grew up there into a man. And the craziest thing about Patrick is that he decided to go back. He realized that this group of people were lost and ignorant, and they didn't know because they didn't have God. And so he went back as a missionary, and he taught the people of Scotland to read using the Bible. The first missionary to Scotland. We know him today as St. Patrick. The Catholic Church sainted him for what he did. But he lived a life of thanksgiving that produced a life of giving. And really, I think that's what I want to be as part of this church, City Point. And we talk about our mission being love, serve, and multiply. And I want to be so thankful for where God has me and the things that are happening in my life. And the fact that I'm undeserving. I haven't done anything to deserve where I am today. I didn't do anything to deserve to be created. I didn't do anything to deserve to be chosen. Definitely haven't deserved standing up here in front of you guys. But I want to be so thankful for that I can live a life that's helpful to others. And I really think that it starts by just being intentionally thankful for the things in our life. And so I have a little bit of homework for you guys. I have your first list in the programs, 1 through 5. I just want to challenge you between now and the new year, just a little over a month, just take some time every day to write down 5 things that you're thankful for. If you want to go a step further, write them down and then put them somewhere that you can see for the next 24 hours. Maybe on your computer, or on your mirror at home, or on the stove, I don't know. Somewhere where you will notice it more than once. But just, if anything, write down 5 things every day that you're thankful for. Let's just see what happens. Because we don't deserve anything that we receive. None of it is earned. We're just thankful that we serve a God who loved us enough to choose us and make a way for us.